Are you craving a trip on Space Mountain? Well, we've got the next best thing. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show, my friend Kyle Burbank from laughingplace.com is joining me for a PrimeTime at the Park segment. From 2009 to 2018, we got to join in on the adventures of the Heck family in the ABC sitcom The Middle. This is a show that I loved from the very beginning, and I watched every episode. So imagine how delighted I was when they decided to do a two-part Walt Disney World episode. Episode 523 is called Orlando, and episode 524 is The Wonderful World of Hecks. Listen as we discuss our thoughts on whether or not the Hecks Disney vacation felt feasible, whether it just felt like one long commercial, and so much more. It's all coming your way right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, I have for you the fashion statement you've been waiting for. Wearing a face mask has become the new norm in 2020, and it's not going away anytime soon. Wearing a mask in public spaces keeps us all safe, and as you know, it's a requirement when visiting a Disney park. So today, I present to you the Zelinsky Labs face mask, inspired of course by Wayne Zelinsky from the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids franchise. I'm happy to say that this completely original item is a collaboration between Disney Coast to Coast and Who's Its and What's Its. If you're not familiar with Who's Its and What's Its, their mission is to find the subtle, deep cuts and references in the Disney stories you love and transform them into magical apparel. I've been a fan of Who's Its and What's Its for a long time, and I know for certain that they have very high standards for quality. But this Zelinsky Labs face mask is only available for a limited time. So head on over to who'sitswhatsits.com to order your Zelinsky Labs face mask. And don't just get one for yourself, this would also make a great holiday gift for the Disney fans in your life. Once again, the site is who'sitswhatsits.com, and that's simply spelled like who'sitswhatsits.com, or you can find a link in this episode's description. Order yours today before it's too late.
Don't touch that remote, because you're tuned into PrimeTime at the Parks.
Hello, Kyle, and welcome back to Disney Coast to Coast. Always a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very excited.
Yeah, you are here for a PrimeTime at the Parks episode, and today we are talking about The Middle, the ABC sitcom that I personally watched every single episode during its original air dates. I'm curious, where were you with The Middle?
It somehow flew under my radar. Like, I was aware that it was on, and when it was on, I'd watch it, and I would enjoy it. And I've seen episodes subsequently in syndication, and always enjoy watching it, but never really sought it out to complete watching it. And I think that's partially because, as we discovered when we went to go watch these episodes, it's not readily available.
Yeah, it's true. It's not as easy to find, like on Hulu or something. There's a lot of these shows we had to go to fandangonow.com to watch them. But I will say, one of these days, it should end up on Disney Plus, right? It was an ABC show. I don't know if Disney owned it, though. No, Warner Brothers did. It was a Warner Brothers show. So yeah, I guess maybe on that HBO Max or something eventually it'll end up there once the contracts end or something. But this is a show I really loved. It's funny, though. I do remember that during I think it was the first D23 Expo. It was this show and Modern Family were both being released in the same, that essentially a month later after the expo, and they had like, hey, come check out the pilots of these shows, you'll be the first to see it. And although I was interested in both shows, I was like, I am not spending my expo time seeing something that I can watch a month from now. Like, no way, no how, sort of thing. But yeah, they were both big hits. And The Middle ran for like 9 seasons. Like I said, I watched every episode. Great cast, great show. I highly recommend it. So I was very happy to go back and check out the Walt Disney World episodes that they did. And episode 523 was the first Disney episode that they did, and this was, it was a two-parter, and this was kind of the setup for them getting to Walt Disney World. But there were quite a few things that happened in this episode that I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like, oh, those remind me of the good old planning vacation days. One of the first things we see is Sue counting down the days to Walt Disney World. Sue, the daughter, is a crazy, hyper-excitable character played by the brilliant Eden Sher, and she's my favorite part of the show. And just her counting down the days was hilarious. And I'm curious, did you have that as a kid? Do you remember those days of counting down your Disney vacations?
I mean, I don't think I was quite as excitable as her, but no, I definitely remember that. And I also kind of reminded me of one of my favorite Disney commercials, which is that I'm too excited to sleep. Because I definitely remember having those sort of feelings. Like the day, it was like Christmas that you knew that you were going to Disney the next day.
Yeah, when it was funny. Time is funny as a kid, right? You really can't keep track of time. And so my mom used to always say one more sleep or two more sleeps. And I remember when Muppet Christmas Carol came out and there's that song, One More Sleep Till Christmas. I was like, that's totally something I relate to. And then also waiting in lines in the Disney parks. If it was like, it's a 30-minute wait, my mom would be like, one TV show. I was like, all right, we have the length of one TV show to wait here. So yes, her counting down the days definitely brings back memories because it is super exciting. I know you and I personally are lucky enough to go frequently, but when you're going once every few years, if not once in a lifetime, the calendar countdowns are very, very, very exciting.
I was a little disappointed, though. I thought that when she has the one where it's 11:59 and she comes in and she's like, like she forgot to say how many days that. I thought she was going to open the door a minute later and then give the updated count after with one day less.
True. You're right. That was a missed opportunity. The writers. Hire Kyle. He should be writing these things. Now, we should say that Sue actually, this is a very, lower class family, and Sue won this trip to Walt Disney World by keeping her hand on a car for, I believe, like 24 hours and outlasting everybody else. So yeah, this is definitely not a typical sort of vacation for the Hecks, which is the name of the family. And so they're even more excitable. They won this trip. They're doing this for the first time ever. Quite possibly the last time ever for them. And, they road trip to Walt Disney World since she just won essentially the park tickets and hotel stay. So they road tripped from, somewhere in Middle America.
I think Indiana.
Sure, let's go with that. Indiana. I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not 100% sure either.
I was going to say, you're the guy that didn't watch the show. I should know. I don't remember, though. But in any case, they had a long drive to get to Walt Disney World. Curious, you just did a very long road trip, not to Walt Disney World, but you were just on the road for 20 hours straight.
And we do drive to Walt Disney World when we go. So it's usually a 16-hour drive for where we live right now in Missouri. So
okay, so what is, I've never done that long of a drive for a Disney vacation. I have for other vacations, but I think the max I stay on the road is like 10 hours and then I'll stop. How's that road trip for you? Does it bother you?
Well, I mean, it's just me and my wife, so I'm sure it'd be different if we had kids, because then I feel like you kind of need to stop. But for us, we've gotten really good at being able to switch off, and so we'll just drive straight. Like the last time we stopped at a hotel or somewhere else on the way was years ago, maybe 5 years ago or something, and it doesn't bother us that much. We drive
8
overnight.
Hours each isn't that bad. I mean, the other one gets to sleep while the other one's driving. It's not horrible, but by the time
the overnight part is hard.
Is it? Yeah, I would assume so.
Always. But we got good at it. We're good about knowing the signs and being like, we need to stop and change.
Nice. So, on this car ride, of course, the kids are trying to entertain themselves. The parents are trying to not go crazy. And Sue, of course, excitable Sue once again, created a Disney playlist. They play a little bit of the Main Street Electrical Parade, which was actually kind of interesting because at one point I was like, this doesn't sound quite right. And then I was like, wait a sec, that melody is accurate. So I guess they do have the rights to use it. But I was like, it was weird that they didn't use like the official soundtrack, in my opinion. Was it jarring for you?
Yeah, I thought at first, because I've been watching like a lot of Scrubs and things on Hulu, and they change the music a lot of the times to my frustration. So I thought it was something like that. I thought they actually had to like dub in a different song at first until she says what it is, and then you can start hearing that melody. So yeah, I did think it sounded strange.
Yeah, now when you do these road trips, do you ever create a Disney music playlist for your way to Walt Disney World or Disneyland?
You know what? We don't, but it's funny enough, on the way here, we were listening to the audiobook of Disney War. So does that count?
That counts. You're in Las Vegas right now, so you were listening to Disney War. How'd you like it? Good book, right?
It's good so far. Yeah, it's very a lot of letter writing.
Yeah,
very different time.
Yeah, true. I read that book a very long time ago. I could definitely use a refresher on it. In any case, one of the other things they mention is the Disney money jar. They make a comment on how, I feel like this is a thing. Everybody has a jar that they're filling up with their extra change to go on a Walt Disney World vacation. Did you ever have
or Paradise Falls, either way.
What was that?
Was it or Paradise Falls, either way?
True, very true. But did you have that as a kid?
We did have a change thing. I don't think it was earmarked for Disney World, but it should have been.
Should have been. Well, you got there anyway, so it's all good.
We went to Disneyland more, but...
How long did you live out here?
We moved to Phoenix when I was 8, and then I moved out when I was 24 or something like that.
Okay.
And then I moved to California, so I was even closer. So I've lived on the West Coast for a long time. I've only lived in Missouri for 5 years now.
Okay. One of the things that we see in this episode is when they get, they're driving up, they're approaching that Welcome to Orlando sign. And, we all know the very famous Walt Disney World gate that there is. Have you ever stopped to take a picture? You know the one I'm talking about where it says Welcome to Walt Disney World and you got Mickey and Minnie. Have you ever stopped to take a picture, and or is there a safe place to stop? I don't think there is.
I don't think there is a good place to stop. No, I've taken pictures. If I'm the passenger at the time, I'll try to snap photos as we're going through, and I've gotten some decent photos that way, especially at sunset. Decent being, any photographer would tell me that they're not decent.
Sure.
But they're good enough to preserve the memory.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, this first episode really is about them getting to Walt Disney World. Before we, enter the gates, shall we say. Is there anything you want to add about that road trip episode or anything?
So actually, I'm going to fast forward just 5 minutes, if that's okay.
Sure.
I didn't realize there were 2 episodes of this at first. I had caught this first episode on syndication, and then something else was on afterwards, so it didn't have the second episode. I thought that this was the Disney World episode. I thought that they seriously didn't go into the park.
Oh, man. No, they get inside. This was a 2-parter. That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, up until recently, I think I knew before. I think Aaron Wallace recently rewatched it and was Instagram storying it. And that's the only way that I knew that there was an actual Disney World episode. I thought, in hindsight, I should have known that they wouldn't fly to Orlando for one shot, that they would have mocked it up somehow.
Yeah.
But...
That's so funny. Yeah, so they do get there. In fact, they get to the front gate of Magic Kingdom, and the cast member says something that annoys me for a couple of reasons. Number one, she says, "Welcome to Disney World," which, of course, we all know it should be Walt Disney World, Kyle. And but the other thing is, have you ever heard anybody at the front gate of a park say "Welcome to Disney World"? This drove me nuts, because this is the pet peeve amongst cast members, right? When people are entering Magic Kingdom or saying, "Hey, I want to go to Disney World," and they really mean I want to go to the Magic Kingdom. You know what I mean? That confusion. So I found it very annoying as a fan watching this, even pretending that a cast member would ever say this. Drove me nuts. Was this just me, or did you notice?
I didn't really notice, but I did. I was thinking that she probably would have sent them over to guest services sooner.
Yes, because there's a problem. When they get to that front gate, guess what, folks? The Hecks do not have tickets to go to Walt Disney World. They have tickets for Disneyland Resort. Wah, wah. This is a problem. What do you think Walt Disney World would do in this scenario?
It would probably take a few minutes, but I think that they would figure it out. And that's something, can I fast forward to the second episode?
Yeah, so we're heading into episode 524. It's the next episode, and we continue this conversation of problems at that front gate with the wrong tickets and actually getting into the park. So go ahead.
So as they're resolving it, the cast member says that this has never happened before. And that is 100% not the case. This has definitely happened before. This has definitely happened more than you would think.
I was going to ask you that. I have that in my notes. He says exactly, we've never had anyone make this mistake before. And first of all, I wonder if this episode helped anybody clarify this. Like, wait a second, maybe I should double check my tickets, sort of thing, and I actually solved the problem. But so you believe it has happened before?
I think definitely. People don't know the difference, or they get gifted them.
But here's the thing, like, well, I guess if you're not staying on property, maybe. Because I was going to say, like, the first thing you're going to do is check into a hotel, right? And it's one thing to show up to, like, a theme park. I mean, and not maybe be confused, especially Magic Kingdom, when so many people just call that Disney World. But, you know, if you're going to the Polynesian Village Resort, you know, you're not going to head to the Disneyland Hotel and think that that's, you know, the equivalent.
That's true. No, that's definitely true. I guess it would be more if you're not staying on property. And also, I think it would happen a lot with legacy tickets. Because I remember my dad had bought those tickets where, you know, you buy 5 days, but you didn't have to use them within a certain time. So you still had like 2 days banked. And he went, I mean, it's probably a decade ago now, but it was still like a long time from when he bought them, and they still honored it. So I'm sure there's people who have really old tickets that are still valid and maybe make that mistake by going to the wrong one.
You know what happened to me once, and it was not honored? A cast member friend emailed me some, you know, comps, essentially, to get into the park. And I get to the main gate, and they're like, where's the cast member? I'm like, oh, no, he's not signing me in. Like, these are paper tickets. And like, yeah, no, these ones, he needs to be here. And I was like,
that's weird.
Yeah, so I don't know, they were lower level tickets or something. So yeah, I legit had to like buy a ticket that day.
Oh, that's sad. I've had cast members send me those comp tickets. I never ran into that issue.
I know which ones you're talking about, and I've used those as well, and those are not a problem. These were different. I think they might have been a college program thing or something like that. Yeah. So I don't know.
And I will say, as far as how they would fix this problem, like, it seems to me that it would be pretty easy. You just be like, oh, okay, well, we'll just exchange these. We'll just honor it. We're all part of the same company. Until I remember my experience of having a Premier Pass and all the things that they needed to go through to get the two resorts to talk to each other. Like, they would need to issue me a 1 day, like, they would need to give me a comp ticket basically and send an email to activate my pass. Like, it was just so archaic the way that they had to do it. And this was a few years ago.
So you're talking about the Premier Pass, which is the pass that gets you, it's an annual pass for both Walt Disney World and Disneyland resorts. Right. And I've had that as well, but what did they have to communicate with each other about?
I think it's because I wanted to get one that had the RFID.
Oh.
That I could use at Walt Disney World. So I did that while I was at Walt Disney World. And then when I came back to Disneyland to update my pass number and stuff, it was just really weird. They had to like make a phone call and send an email. I'm like, this should be easier. It is
strange sometimes with the company. Gosh, here's a tangent for you. So my entire family, this was many years ago at this point. In fact, I think it was the first year that Disney Cruise Line was in operation. The 7 of us went on a Disney cruise. For some reason, for both myself and one of my siblings, Disney Cruise Line has no record of us ever being on the ship. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, we're Disney Vacation Club, where there's photos of us on this ship, like in the restaurants with the rest of my family. Talk about jump through hoops. I've never had to jump through so many hoops just for them to acknowledge the fact that, yes, you have been on, you've been part of Disney Cruise Line. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. I mean, listen, I get it. It's a massive company. But within divisions, it can become a major, major, major headache sometimes. And, it sounds like you had that with the Premier Pass. I had that with Disney Cruise Line. But the Hecks honestly did pretty well, I would say.
Yes.
First of all, we see them in a guest relations office, which I'm 99% sure was a set. But I love the fact that they had the Walt pictures everywhere, all over the walls. And I was like, yeah, this looks like the kind of space that they'd have you wait in, I think. I liked it.
Yeah.
Then eventually, what happens is they get their park tickets, right? They're... the guest relations person comes in acting a little bit like, I don't know what we're going to do. And eventually is like, we're going to make sure your day is magical or something like that. And which I think is probably what would have happened. The one thing I would say that they got that I think, well, maybe not the one thing, but at this moment, they got that I'm not sure they would get is, my guess is they probably would have given them 1 day, 1 park tickets or 2 day, 1 park tickets. Like they were park hopping a little bit. And that's not, because they're going to want to give as much equivalency as the Disneyland resort would be, right? So, although I guess they did only go to 2 parks. So maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, if they had a park hopper for Disneyland, I don't think the price difference would be that great.
That's true. That's true as well, since Disneyland's so much more expensive. But in any case, they do get into the park, and, good for the Hecks, but definitely a scary moment when when you get that news of, you're in the wrong place. Not good. But Disney Guest Relations took care of it. They go inside, and one of the funniest things, if you watch this show, you know that young Brick, who's the youngest sibling, he has an obsession with font, like type font. And I love this thing where the thing he wants to do is get Mickey ears with, the embroidered name on the back. And he's like, we have 3 different fonts to choose from, the cast member says. And Brick is just like taking a very long time to make this decision. I love this. I don't know about you, but when I go on a Disney vacation with family, shopping tends to be the last thing we do, like at the end of the day. So if I had a sibling like Brick, who is like, first thing I got to do is go to a shop, I'd be annoyed, just like the rest of the Hecks were.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I like beforehand where he's asking the first aid station nurse about, do you know these ears? They have like kind of like a half dome and then like ears on the like, yeah, she knows the hat, Brett.
Yeah, he was surprised every time. Oh, look, he's got one. Oh, she's got one. And the dad's just like, yeah, a lot of people have these hats.
But no, we also would mostly shop at the end, but I can definitely relate to everyone kind of wanting to do one specific thing, and they're like, well, we're right here, let's go do this, and then you never get the thing you were trying to do.
Yeah, going with a larger, like, what's the biggest size group you ever like went with your immediate vacation group?
Probably it was actually in 8th grade. There was like a field trip that they took us on, so I was with friends, and that was a large group. And then I definitely have feelings of this where someone wants to go into a shop and just buy one thing and it takes forever. But as far as family, it was usually only just like 4 of us. So
okay, I grew up with always 7 of us, and 7 is a tough number, especially when the age range is, I believe my oldest sister's 11 years older than me, or 10, and then my brother's 3 years younger. So it's a pretty wide age range. And yeah, when you get to a certain age, you can split off and do your own thing. But at the same time, like when you're on a family vacation, it's a lot of 7 of you trying to decide to do something. So it gets crazy. I definitely related, even though there were only 5. I still related to that. Now, Sue is a super, as we said, excitable, but also a planner. And she had this massive binder that she was carrying around with all of the plans, the best time to do things. I'm curious. I mean, I know that there are hyper detailed planners out there. In fact, including our friend Aaron Wallace, who has come on the show to talk about his insane itinerary that he once did and created. But have you ever seen somebody in the parks with an actual binder full of notes?
No, but I did like that she had like touring plans, information and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That made me laugh.
Yeah, and it was, she did her research. And where do you, I mean, gosh, like I said, we're lucky enough to go pretty often that I don't plan that much anymore. The things I plan are shows. And like a scheduled show, I'll be like, okay, great, I'm doing Fantasmic tonight, or I'm doing Happily Ever After, or whatever. Other than that, I'm just like, let's go with the flow and see what's going to happen.
No, definitely. I think, if I'm going to a park where I really want to accomplish one thing, I'll find the best way to do that 1 or 2 things or whatever. But other than that, yeah, it's mostly walk by. Oh, this has a nice return time. Why don't we get a fast pass for this and come back? Hey, we're over here. Why don't we do this? But yeah, I'm not sitting there and figuring out every 15 minutes of my day.
I don't think I ever did, to be honest. Like, I have a sister who loved crossing things off of maps. And she would often, have the map and everything we do, she'd cross it off and success complete. But other than that, what my favorite thing was doing, though, when you have somebody who loves doing that, it's always fun to kind of like, while you're waiting in line, read the descriptions of certain attractions, because you're like, oh, what's this one like? And you'll read something and it'll sound super cool the way that they describe it. And then you finally realize, oh, it's like Dumbo or something, where you're just spinning in circles. But the way that they described it made it sound like this really unbelievable attraction. And that always cracked me up. Did that ever happen to you?
I definitely enjoy reading the descriptions for, like you said, but no, I don't think I've ever been. Oh, well, actually, not at Disney, not at Walt Disney World or any of the Disney parks, but Legoland always makes their stuff sound really cool, and then that park is for little kids.
Yeah.
I always get fooled by their billboards.
Okay.
Like they have, they might have like a real ride vehicle, but like kind of take some liberties with the scene that the people are seeing, and you don't realize that it's not actually like a scene from the ride. That's pretty sneaky.
I think that it happened to me once, as an adult. The Disney ones I'm talking about when I was younger. But as an adult, I remember being in Islands of Adventure, and there was an attraction that I was reading the description of, like, I've definitely never ridden this before. And I think, I could be wrong, correct me if you know, there's like a storm attraction in Marvel Superhero Island.
Kind of sounds familiar, but it also kind of doesn't.
It's essentially like teacups. But the way that I read the description, I'm like, I've never done this. I've got to do this. This sounds wonderful. And I went over and I was like, oh, it's the teacups. I was like, I don't need that. But yeah, Universal does a pretty good job of, so does Disney, but Universal, I remember their billboards used to really trick me, because like remember the ET billboard of the kids flying on the bicycles, and you obviously don't see the whole contraption that the bikes are sitting on, but like as a kid scared of heights, I remember being like, there's no way I'm like sitting on a solo bike flying through an attraction. No way. And then with Jaws, I remember like the giant shark like biting the ship, which, to be fair, at one point in the original attraction, the shark did bite the ship, but that eventually got changed. But yeah, I don't know. It's always funny to me how they make these attractions often sound so much bigger and better than they are.
Yeah.
It's probably a kind of fun job, honestly, to be the person doing that copywriting.
That's true. I hadn't really thought about that, but that would be fun.
Yeah, now one thing we see in this episode a lot is the family of 5, 3 kids, a lot of fighting in the park. And can we just say, like it or not, family fights in a Disney park, it's all part of the vacation, is it not? When do you not have a fight with your family in the parks? You see it all the time.
Especially with the road trip element, because has anyone ever had a road trip and not had a fight? Like,
it's tough, man. Fighting in the Disney parks. I always, whenever I walk through now and just hear kids crying, I always break into that song. Are you familiar with the musical You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, at all?
I know of it, but no, okay. I don't know any songs from it.
There's a song that goes like, happiness is morning and evening. And I just always start singing the song Happiness whenever I hear children crying in a Disney park.
Like, my dad does something similar. He'll just turn to me and go, happiest place on earth.
You do hear a lot of people say that. I feel like my brother will say that a lot. But yeah, listen, overtired children, moody teenagers, it's bound to happen. Yet it's still one of the happiest places on earth. But yeah, it's part of the vacation. One of the things I really appreciated, one of the things we talk about a lot on the Primetime at the Parks episodes, is whether or not certain situations are believable when they're in the Disney parks. And something happens, I believe they were boarding Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and they all had turkey legs. And they're just about to board the attraction, and the cast member stops them and is like, sorry, you can't bring that on the ride. And the mom's just like, eat them really fast sort of situation. But I was happy to see that they actually did that, because that would totally happen, if not sooner.
Yeah, they're probably, because they were about to get on the ride. So the person sending them to the line, that cast member loading the vehicle, would have noticed.
Well, at least you didn't see them on the ride chowing down on that thing, because that would have been extremely unbelievable. Now, of course, with this vacation, as I said, the Hecks won a night in a hotel as well. Of course, they weren't at the Disneyland Resort, so they had to find them a hotel room. They ended up, and I quote, in the Grand Villa Hotel Suites. Is that a thing?
I don't know. Villa is definitely a word Disney uses a lot. Grand is a word Disney uses a lot. Suite, also. I don't know if that's at a specific place. I also don't know if you're really supposed to take it as Sue saying that it is. I think she's just throwing together a bunch of words to kind of...
Is it Sue who says it? I
think it was Sue. I think she was basically just conveying how awesome this room is.
Okay. Well, if that's the case...
it's Brick calling from the other room, and I think it's Sue that answers.
Okay. For some reason, I thought one of the cast members said it, but I could be totally remembering wrong. But in any case, did this look familiar, like even just the architecture of the building? If you had to guess... Do you feel like this was... Because, I doubt that this was a set. This was some rented hotel room. quite possibly not a Disney one. But I'm curious, just based on the architecture or anything, was there anything that hinted to you that this was an actual Disney hotel?
I think it is, but I couldn't tell you where. It was just kind of looked like a general presidential suite type of thing. So yeah, I don't know. That table was way too big to be like a regular villa, but it could be some other DVC type thing.
You don't think it was a set, though, right? That was definitely some hotel, right?
It could have been, but that seems silly. Like, they can definitely, like, no one is staying in the presidential suite most of the times. So it would probably be more economic just to go up there.
That would have been a really expensive set to build for like 3 minutes of the episode.
Right.
So I'm assuming it's from somewhere where I don't know, but they never specifically... They don't get specific about it. It's the Grand Villa Hotel Suite, so it could be anywhere for all we know. It is pointed out to them, though, that out the window they have a fantastic fireworks view, which I thought was an odd thing to say, because one of the things that happens earlier in the episode is that we see, oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name, the oldest son.
Axel,
you're right. We see him say that... Next line we see, we're getting in it, we're going on that ride, because at that point they'd spent so much time in the park and still hadn't ridden anything. So they get in a line, and the line's for the exit. And as they exit, we hear an announcement over the loudspeaker, I think it was Mickey, in fact, saying, thanks for coming, have a magical day, the park's closed, essentially. So I found it really funny that when they get to the hotel, the cast member's like, oh yeah, and you get this great view of the fireworks. I'm like, park's closed, no fireworks. And they're there for one night. So...
Well, maybe it was a party night, and so they got kicked out of Magic Kingdom early, but maybe Epcot or something had fireworks. But no, you're right.
I like that. I like that idea, but there were no Halloween decorations, nor were there Christmas decorations. So maybe it was a special event party night.
Yeah, maybe Miley Cyrus rented it out was at Disneyland, but...
Oh, man. Sam Carter, who's been on this show before, he did a lot of the designs for that party, all of like the graphic work and stuff. And I remember being there that day and seeing the signs that like Disneyland is closing early for Miley Cyrus's birthday. I was like, screw her. I was really angry. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm getting kicked out for Miley Cyrus? Oh, man. But okay, let's go with the special event night. Otherwise, I mean, frankly, the cast member was just kind of rubbing it in that you got a great view, but you can't take advantage of it. Another thing that happened in the hotel that was kind of, unbelievable, frankly, was, the Hecks were staying in this luxurious room, and they were super comfortable while they were sleeping, and they slept in until 3 p.m. Now, you're not going to sleep until 3 p.m. You're going to get kicked out by then, right? What's like 11 a.m. checkout, right?
Again, I thought of the same thing, but if they were a comp room, then maybe they were off the radar. This room's rarely filled. They're probably not paying much attention to it.
I mean, I would feel like those would be the rooms that pay the most attention to, right?
Well, I just mean like as far as they're going through like to clean it and get it ready for the next guest, because there's probably not a next guest.
Do you really feel like they're empty that often?
I would think so, unless it's like, I can't imagine. I don't think that they upgrade people to them regularly, and I don't think many people are paying.
Then why do they build them?
My entire knowledge for saying this is forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he shows up in the only room available is something that's way too expensive that no one's going to get.
I love that you're basing this on a Jason Segel movie. Listen, all right, yeah. I accept.
That's gospel. So,
oh man, yeah, maybe, I don't know. I would assume they get rented out a decent amount because every hotel seems to have one, but who knows. But in any case, they slept until 3. So basically their second park day, they slept through most of it and had to check out of that glorious hotel room. But at least they got a really good night's sleep, right? There's that plus. Okay, so in this second day, they do split up. The parents end up going to Epcot because the dad gives this whole speech about, he was really hoping he could just take his wife to Paris and Epcot to have a lovely dinner because they'll never get to the real Paris in real life. And, the parents go off and have fun. The kids end up kind of initially wanting to separate, but then decide to stay together because they are family after all. But we get this scene in Paris at Epcot and they're dining
France.
outside. What was that?
France.
France, I'm sorry. In France at Epcot, thank you for the correction. And we see them, the Eiffel Tower in the background, as they have there, and these tables out on the street where they're dining. Complete BS, right?
Not a thing, no.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It's like clear why they did it, because if they were in an actual restaurant, then you couldn't see the whole setting.
Sure.
So I understand why they fake it, but yeah, that's the closest you would get is they might have tables set up for food and wine, but then they'd be standing there, not sitting down, having getting refills of wine and stuff.
Yeah, it was a great shot though of like I said, the tower in the background and the whole France pavilion, and it looked beautiful. But I did think to myself, I was like, yeah, I don't think this exists ever. So you have confirmed that. It's the whole the countries in World Showcase. I wish they did have some dining thing like that. I mean, obviously they all have tons of dining, but talk about beautiful views. Where are the places where they're like, oh, come watch illuminations from here? Or back in the day they used to say that, where they had the outdoor seating.
I'm not sure. I know next to Rosencrowns there's outdoor seating and stuff.
Okay. Now, when they're shooting all of these shows, they're obviously, the parks are open. Have you ever been inside when one of those happens? And I always wonder how they deal with that. Because
I think they corral, only little parts. So they'll have, little sections where they'll have their extras and put those people in there, but then they try to, hide the ropes and stuff where they're actually blocking off a significant portion. It wasn't very noticeable in this show, but if you watch the Modern Family episode, especially because of how quickly they shoot that show, it's a little bit more noticeable how there's kind of these gaps between, I think you can even see a crowd control, cast or guest control. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it's kind of impressive that they do this during normal park hours, and that it doesn't cause a bigger headache than it needs to. And it must be kind of fun to see, I would imagine, if you're on vacation, and also kind of annoying to have to reroute yourself to get to one place. But
I'm sure if we watch these a little closer, you'd probably see people standing in the background just watching them film.
Well, I always wonder, for me, I always think of the copyright issues of people's, their shirts or whatever's imagery they have on there. You could have a Universal Studios t-shirt walking through, which of course they don't want. So I guess anybody that's a real person is far enough away that they're a blur. And then anybody that's close enough is an extra, essentially, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Now on this show, it seems like you cannot have a sitcom at a Disney park without the classic, iconic Splash Mountain shot. And this show does not disappoint. We get that classic shot. I find it funny. A lot of these sitcoms that we've talked about in prime times at the parks, Splash Mountain was semi-new at the time, so I guess it kind of made sense. So they're promoting one of their newer, bigger attractions. But, I mean, this was many, many years after that attraction opened, and they're still using that money shot. It's kind of hilarious.
And it'll continue even when it's Tiana. But yeah, it's just that and Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, another classic shot that they used on Goldberg's. They do it in That Thing You Do.
That's right.
Or is that the Matterhorn? I forget.
I think it's the Matterhorn.
But yeah, those sort of outdoor roller coasters and flumes and stuff, I think.
And Dumbo. But yeah, I don't know. The Splash Mountain one always cracks me up. It's always that shot, and I guess it's a must-do attraction, and they're getting rid of it.
And I'm sure that shot used to be way more intensive, and now they can just stick up a couple GoPros and call it a day. Yeah.
Well, it's usually a shot from far away, and you get but I know what you're saying. It's funny to me that they always have that. And then these episodes often end with fireworks, very often at Magic Kingdom with those fireworks, but in this one, the illumination feels. Did it hit you in the gut? Because it hit me in the gut.
It didn't hit me in the gut, but I did enjoy that they were all at Epcot instead of Magic Kingdom.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, the illumination. In fact, there was one point, as we said, the parents went to Epcot, but the kids pretty much stayed at Magic Kingdom, but they did this kind of intercut with some attractions, and at one point, I forget where they were, but it was definitely Magic Kingdom, and then all of a sudden they're on Test Track, and then I think back at Magic Kingdom. Yeah. And I was like, come on, guys, really?
It wasn't the most egregious editing error in these primetime specials, I'll say that.
No, but most people don't care. It's just us nitpicking it. But it was kind of funny. But the kids did end up meeting up with their parents in Epcot. So I guess it justified it that way. They just kind of edited it a bit out of order. In my opinion, I would have put Test Track last so that when they met up with the parents, then it would have made a bit more sense. But most people don't care, so I get it. But yeah, so there's that. And then it ends with the Illumination fireworks, and it made me miss Illuminations and wonder, when are we getting Harmonious? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, lots of things to figure out.
Yeah. So when you were watching this, one of the things I always wonder is, did this feel like a Disney Parks commercial to you, this episode of The Middle?
Not so much. I mean, especially not the first episode. No, I thought it was definitely more toned down than some of these can be. At times, you know, some of the things you're surprised that they even get away with. Like you're saying, like taking them to first aid. Like that doesn't seem like that they'd want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I did I forgot to mention at the very beginning, one of my favorite parts of the second episode was when she's like, "Oh no, I know that these aren't for Disney World or Walt Disney World because we have these magic bands and they tap and they make a noise." And she's like, "Well, we could do that, beep." So I appreciated they explained the difference in technology between the two parks.
True, very true. In fact, you mentioned first aid. Was that actress who played the nurse? Was she from The Facts of Life?
That's a good question. I don't know.
She looked familiar to me. I was like, I think she might be an actress from The Facts of Life. I'm not sure. But yeah, it is funny. I never thought of that. But at least now we know, anybody watching knows that Disney does in fact have really good first aid, I would assume. I don't know. I've never had to deal with it.
It would make sense that she is, because then the whole point of the episode is that you take the bad, you take the good, you take them both, and then you have the facts of life.
Yeah. You take the good, you take the bad, you mix them up, you add them up, and then you have whatever, the facts of life. I've never seen a full episode of that show because they didn't have a Disney episode, so no reason for me to go back and see it. But yeah, so the other thing I always ask, and I know you didn't watch the show as regularly as me, but did you feel like the story that we saw actually fit within the sitcom, or did it feel really forced, like they got a call saying, "Hey, guess what? You're doing a Walt Disney World episode"?
No, I definitely thought that it fit. If anything, I feel like the first episode spent a lot of time, like that whole side thing about Brick's girlfriend, like that just seemed very random.
Yeah.
It seemed like it could have been like one 45-minute episode instead of making it two 30-minute episodes.
Yeah, that was funny, his little girlfriend. Yeah. That was a whole other thing. But yeah, so I didn't feel like it. Yeah, I mean, I do feel like it fit very, very well, knowing these characters. The one thing, back to did it feel like a commercial? I feel like a lot of them get a little bit like name droppy as far as, even if you don't see them on attractions, they'll mention, "Oh, we've got to go do, whatever, the Barnstormer."
They get really excited about lame attractions too.
Yeah. I didn't feel like this episode had any of that. It was all very, they hit what they hit, and you didn't really hear much about anything else. So definitely didn't feel like a commercial. And all the characters were definitely acting like themselves. It felt real. I like the fact that they weren't just like one day, "Hey, we saved up enough money to go to Walt Disney World." It was like, no, they won this. They recognized this was like the chance of a lifetime for them. So it all felt very organic to me. And I was really happy that they did these episodes. I thought that they were great.
I'm glad to know they actually did make it into the park. That was the second episode.
Yeah, they should have done a Disneyland episode after, where they won a trip to Walt Disney World and they go to Disneyland instead. And they're like, "Oh, well, we already did that one. Let's see if we can get into the other one, and we'll just play stupid and pretend that we went to the wrong place." They'd have the record of that. Can you even imagine, though? That'd be pretty funny. Now, we did talk about some little errors, I would say, like, the France Pavilion restaurant and stuff like that. But overall, I think this actually did a pretty darn good job of legitimizing the Disney Parks experience. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think so. I thought it was weird that she said Dumbo never has a line, because maybe I'm just thinking of Disneyland, but that's not true.
Yeah.
Little things like that. And I'm sure if I paid enough attention when they say, "Oh, that's over this way," and based on where they're standing, they're wrong.
I didn't see
But there
much
weren't
of
any
that,
obvious ones.
Yeah, no, there really weren't. And I feel like a lot of the other sitcoms, it's just very, very obvious. And this one, not so much. They did a pretty darn good job. It seems like whoever wrote this had a pretty good understanding of what the Disney parks are. I am really curious, and I really don't know the answer to this, but I am curious, like, what the mandate is with these episodes as far as, I would assume, listen, they are commercials for the parks. I would assume that some lawyers get involved to make sure certain things happen. And I'd be curious to kind of know what they're told and what they have to do and stuff like that.
Yeah, and this was kind of an interesting one because a lot of the times when they do these, they're really hyping whatever the new ride is, and that didn't happen. So that definitely toned down the whole commercial thing.
I do feel like I saw a bit of the hub construction going on. Did you notice this at all?
No, I didn't.
During the scene where they were having the big fight and they were trying to take the family photo in front of the castle and then they ended up fighting, I do feel like they hit it pretty darn well, but I feel like I saw a lot of construction walls in the distance a bit. I was like, oh my gosh, I think this was going on back when they were, redoing all of that grass area in the hub and everything. And yeah, so they didn't have much to advertise at that time, and it certainly wasn't that, here's the new shiny thing, come check it out. Even Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which would have been fairly new at that time, they didn't even make a comment of what they were going on. Anyway, anything else you want to add about these episodes of The Middle at Walt Disney World, or shall we get to some trivia, sir?
Well, hopefully if they ever land on HBO Max or something, I think they're definitely worth watching. Even if you haven't seen the show before, I think they're a lot of fun.
And here's the thing, guys. This show reruns constantly on television. I don't know what network, but it repeats.
I think it's on Freeform. I think that's where I've seen some of it. I could be wrong.
It airs a lot. So if you keep your eye out for episodes, I'll say it once again, episode 523 is called Orlando, and episode 524 is called The Wonderful World of Hecks. So keep your eye out for those, set the DVR, and check them out because they're both really, really good.
I will say, did you think when Sue was talking about Orlando, she was going to break into the line from Book of Mormon?
Orlando from Book of Mormon.
I thought she was going to do that for a second.
I mean, I think of that whenever I hear the word Orlando, which is probably just a problem with me. But I guess I'm not the only one because you do it as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually always think about that line, because Orlando with SeaWorld and Disney and putt-putt golfing. And I'm always like, one of these days, SeaWorld ain't going to exist probably. So what are they going to do?
Days coming quick.
Yeah. I really genuinely hope that they figure something. I mean, they're building a lot. They're building a lot of coasters. It's just going to be an entirely different thing.
Well, I just think financially, I think this is a big setback for it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll pull through.
I think a lot of parks, but hopefully things work out. I don't know. We'll see. On that happy note, let's get to some trivia, shall we?
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, Kyle. Shall I hit you with a trivia question first, or do you want to hit me?
I would like to go first.
Okay, let's hear it.
So you alluded to this, and I thought you were going to give away the answer, and I was really scared.
Let's see.
At the first D23 Expo, like you were saying, they introduced 3 comedies.
Oh, okay.
So The Middle, Modern Family. Do you remember what the third one was?
Was it Blackish?
No, that was years later.
Was it a flop or did it run?
So The Middle lasted 9 seasons, Modern Family lasted 11, and this other one went for 1 season.
Oh, gosh. Ugh. Give me a hint. Who starred in it?
Kelsey Grammer.
Oh, does it start with an H?
Yes.
Hook or Hunt, or it was one word, right?
It's one word. It's a person's name. His name, presumably.
Yeah.
But nobody watched it, so who would know?
Oh, it sounds vaguely familiar. I think it's shot on the Warner Brothers lot, if I'm remembering correctly. I feel like it's 4 letters.
Yes.
Starts with an H. It's not Hook. It's
no.
A 4-letter H name. Hank?
Yep, that's
Hank. It's called Hank. All right.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
1 season.
I don't even remember that being at the expo. How funny. I vividly remember Modern Family in The Middle, but I don't even remember
They did a panel with, I forget who from Modern Family, but then I'd remember they had Patricia Heaton, that's her name, right?
Yeah, Patricia Heaton.
Patricia, and then Kelsey Grammer, who had actually just started another show that didn't last very long for Fox called Back to You, and he joked about that.
With Patricia Heaton, right?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, so he was joking about that and be like, "Oh, we're at a better place now." And it's like, well, maybe she is.
She is. I mean, honestly, she's done remarkably well. She had, what was it, 10 years on Everybody Loves Raymond. That did very, very well. And then the middle 9 years, that did really well. Yeah, she had like a flop in between them. But then she, like now this past season, she had that Carol's First Act, another multicam sitcom. I don't know if it did well or not, but she was starring in another one. I was like, this woman's working consistently.
And Neil Flynn had a really long run as a series regular on a TV show because he did, I guess, 8 years on Scrubs because the ninth one he only was in one episode. But then I think he was already on The Middle, which ran for 9 years. So he had 18 years of being a series regular without interruption.
Yeah.
Or I guess 17 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's good for them, really good for them. It's awesome. Well, my trivia question for you is, on what Disney animated TV show can you hear Eden Scher, who played Sue on The Middle, performing the voice of a titled character?
Is it Star versus the Forces of Evil?
It is, and the character's name is Star Butterfly from Star versus the Forces of Evil. That was on Disney Channel and Disney XD, and I believe right now you can see it on Disney+.
I think so. I've never watched it, but it looks fun.
I moderated a panel with a lot of the cast members of this show at SAG-AFTRA, and my biggest disappointment was that Eden wasn't there. She had a schedule conflict, but I really love her. She, as Sue, was so delightful and such a joy to watch, and in a lot of actors' hands would have made that character really annoying to watch and or unbelievable. And neither were the case. She was just so endearing as Sue. And I know they shot a pilot for a spinoff.
Sue in the City.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it never went anywhere, right?
No, they picked it up and they did the pilot and then they didn't follow through with it. But
yeah, it's a show that honestly was probably too soon because it was immediately after The Middle ended, and I would have preferred them wait a while and bring it back. But then I guess Sue would have been older, and if she was still acting like that as an adult, it would have been really unappealing, I guess.
It could still happen. I mean, they passed on Schooled the first time around, and then it came. And then had 2 seasons and they got canceled. But,
got canceled. Yeah, so The Middle was great. I always said, since The Middle and Modern Family started at the same time, I always wish that The Middle got the 2 additional seasons and Modern Family ended when The Middle did. Because to me, as much as I enjoyed Modern Family, the show was done. It was done before those 2 years. Whereas The Middle, I was like, they had a great run. Certainly no regrets here. But I would have loved to have seen those people for 2 more years. I really liked that show a lot.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting because it got a lot of comparisons to Malcolm in the Middle for very
just
obvious
of the
reasons.
Title, yeah, and
the title
the
and
Class Family.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's for a show that seemed like it's just a ripoff of that to go and have the run that it did. I think it's impressive and speaks to ABC's knack for doing these kind of family comedies.
Yeah, and honestly, as much as it always reminded me of Malcolm in the Middle just because of the title mostly, but I never felt like it was a ripoff. The only similarity is that it's a middle-class family, or lower-class family.
They fight, but they don't seem to fight as intensely.
Well, it was Fox ironically enough, Disney now owns Malcolm in the Middle, don't they?
Yeah, I think that might be on Disney+.
No kidding. That show I love.
That's on Disney+, but The Middle isn't. Go figure.
It's got to be a contract thing. Plus, like I said, it is a WB show, even though it was on ABC. So I don't know how that'll work out. But regardless, great show. If you have the time, go back and watch the full series. If you don't, check out these 2 Disney episodes for sure. And Kyle, thanks so much for coming on and chatting on this Primetime at the Parks. Where can folks find you? Plug away, sir.
If you're into personal finance, you can follow me at moneyat30.com.
Do you have any information about how to successfully save for an expensive Walt Disney World vacation?
I mean, not specifically, but I do have tips for saving money and then tips for saving money at Walt Disney World specifically, but not for saving up to Walt Disney World. Maybe I'll have to do that.
You should do that, cross promote there. I do love that you have that just because I know our relationship is very much on the Disney theme park side of things. And I just love that you have this whole other side that, people in my world don't necessarily have blogs about. So
yeah,
awesome.
I also have a YouTube channel, Money at 30. I'm plugging things I didn't intend to plug, but and then also
listen. Wait a sec. Tell them about this amazing deal and why you're in Las Vegas for 10 days right now.
Oh, geez,
because you know how to make great deals. What are you paying? You said $20 a night.
Yeah.
Come on.
And we
So
drove.
go follow him. If you want to figure out how to stay in Vegas for $20 a night, you need to be following Kyle and get his
I guess
financial
going
advice.
during a pandemic might not be the best advice, though. But
I mean, it's kind of good advice, actually.
that's partially why it's $20 a night. But then also I do stuff at Laughing Place. My wife writes full time for them, and I am the editorial director. So you'll see me pop up there from time to time. So you can follow us at twitter.com/laughing_place and laughingplace.com. And we sponsor, when you hear the words coming out of Jeff's mouth on Sunday's House of Mouse, chances are I wrote them.
Yeah, there's a very good chance that those are actually Kyle's words coming out of my mouth. And
Or that I copied them from one of our news people.
The snarky comments are quite often my little quips thrown in there, but it's very true. Without this guy you're hearing right now, the House of Mouse headlines would not
I bring
exist,
the puns,
so.
he brings the snark.
It's true. I do say throw in as much dad humor as you can. So whenever you want to throw something at the speaker, because you're like, really, did you just say that? It's probably Kyle's fault, but I encourage it, so therefore it's my fault. Anyway, Kyle, thanks so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Now, folks, if you haven't listened to this past Wednesday's episode of Disney Coast to Coast, be sure to check it out as I spoke with Tony Gardner, a makeup effects artist who worked on more Disney projects than even I knew. And on next week's episode, I chat all about what it was like taking a Walt Disney World vacation during a pandemic just 3 months after its reopening. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out patreon.com/DisneyCTC to find out how you can join the DCTC community and gain rewards. That's patreon.com/DIZNEYCTC. Plus, help other folks find the show by leaving a 5-star rating and review for Disney Coast to Coast on Apple Podcasts. And finally, don't forget to head over to whositswhatsits.com or click the link in this episode's description to order your Zelinsky Labs face mask. It is only available for a limited time, so place your order today. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. This podcast is part of the DePodcast Network. Learn more about this show, plus find more quality and entertaining podcasts at DePodcastNetwork.com. That's DEPodcastNetwork.com.